Have you ever been disciplined in your role as a employee of the Miami Beach Police Department?
Yes.
What was that for?
I received a letter of reprimand, I believe it was my second year, failure to follow orders correctly.
And what, do you remember the circumstances of that failure to follow orders correctly?
Basically, I was ordered to keep a prisoner I had in my custody at the county jail where I was processing prisoners. She claimed she was raped, and the correctional supervisor there advised that she had to be taken to the rape treatment center. So I ordered another officer, a junior officer, to me to take her there before detectives could respond and, I guess, take over.
Any other discipline?
Maybe, I want to say maybe 3 minor written reprimand, not a written reprimand, I'm sorry, verbal warnings, reference off duty, just working too many hours, but nothing else.
If I refer to the day of the incident or the day we're here about, you understand that those are the events of June 24th, 2018 at the South Point Pier involving individuals who were openly carrying while fishing, right?
Yes.
Okay. When I received the discovery, I received 17 different video files with the last 4 digits of 5094 as that identifier. And it appears that's where you kept turning your camera on and off during the course of the events. Do you remember turning your camera on and off?
Yes.
Okay. Sometimes I would get video but no audio. Do you have the ability to turn your audio off while leaving your video running?
So the reason you don't get audio, and most likely it's at the beginning of the video, is while the camera's buffering, it's constantly recording. So when it's constantly recording and I activate it, it records 30 seconds prior to the activation with no sound.
Okay.
So that's why you see a video with no sound for the first 30 seconds.
Okay. So when you turned off, but when you would turn it off to talk to another officer or to talk to Lieutenant Garcia, was it recording but just not capturing, or how does that work? Do you know?
So when I stepped away to talk about the investigation with the lieutenant or other officers, I would turn it off, and at that point it's buffering.
Okay. To your knowledge, is there any way to retrieve that video or that audio from when you turned it off?
To my knowledge, no.
And I've been led to understand that it is Miami Beach Police Department policy that you're allowed to turn it off at certain times to have conversations with other officers.
Correct.
Okay. Does it appear from your review of your video yesterday that each of the times where it was turned off and then back on was because you were engaging with another officer to discuss the investigation?
Correct.
Yes, it was?
Yes.
Do you remember how you initially learned that you needed to come to the South Point Park or South Point Pier?
Yeah, so we got a call through dispatch from the park ranger advising that we had multiple people there on the pier with firearms. The park ranger, I guess, approached him. He advised dispatch of what he had, basically saying, I got some guys here with guns, and we decided to respond thinking, what is this? This isn't a normal call we usually get.
So did you actually speak to the park ranger before you got to the park and saw him physically?
So on the BWC, it does show me, it shows us talking to him. Mm-hmm. It is those 30 seconds prior, so there's no audio, so I can only speculate what he's saying, and basically saying, I got guys here with guns. I told them they had to leave, they wouldn't leave, So we're thinking, okay, why are these guys here? Do we have an active shooter situation here? I don't know what I got. So we have to treat it as a possible threat at the moment.
Madam Court Reporter, can you read back my last question, please?
Sure. A question, did you actually speak to the park ranger before you got to the park and saw him physically?
Yes.
You talked to him by phone?
I believe he was there on scene.
Okay, the question was, did you speak with the park ranger before you arrived at the park and were physically present with him?
No.
Okay. So when he called dispatch, dispatch notified you, but they didn't patch his phone call through to you or anything like that?
No.
So when you're driving to the scene and before you actually get there and meet up with the park ranger, you knew what dispatch was telling you the park ranger said, not necessarily what the park ranger actually said, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, once you got to the park, do you know who got to the park ranger first, whether it was you, Rivera, Villamil, or Garcia?
We all together. We were all together, so we all got there at the same time.
Okay. And y'all had a short conversation with the park ranger.
Correct.
And he told you there were people on the pier with guns, right?
Yes.
Did he tell you anything else other than there are men on the pier and they have guns?
It may have been brought up that these are possible sovereign citizens in that conversation.
All right. Is that something the park ranger said?
I don't remember the exact conversation, but I remember sovereign citizens being mentioned, which is why my alert level went up.
Okay. Because sovereign citizens have a higher danger level in terms of officer interaction, right?
Correct.
You've had training on sovereign citizens.
Yes.
And that's your training is once you're dealing with those people, you got a whole other level of concern that you need to have about your interaction.
Correct.
Okay. But you don't remember whether it was the park ranger or one of your fellow officers that brought up these might be sovereign citizens.
I do not remember.
As you sit here today, do you have any reason to believe that they were sovereign citizens in any way?
Today's date?
Yes, sir.
No.
Okay. Once you concluded your investigation that day, did you have any reason to still believe they were sovereign citizens?
My suspicion was lowered, but I still don't know to this day if they truly are or not. I mean, I don't believe they are. But at that moment, going into the pier, that was my suspicion that these guys were sovereign citizens.
What information did you have before you walked onto that pier? What information did you have that led you to believe they were sovereign citizens?
That it was mentioned that there were possible sovereign citizens, that I had multiple armed men on the pier. And at that point, it's a Sunday morning. I have multiple people on the pier, people on the beach. I have cruise ships going by. I have the Coast Guard, multiple private vessels, jet skis. So at that moment, I'm treating this as a possible threat.
Okay. Does something about having multiple private vessels link to the idea of sovereign citizens?
Objection to form. Could you read that question back again?
Question, does something about having multiple vessels link to the idea of sovereign citizens?
I guess no.
Okay. Well, I asked you what information you had that led you to believe they were sovereign citizens. First thing you said is it was mentioned that they might be sovereign citizens.
Yes,
right?
correct.
But you don't remember who mentioned it.
Correct.
Okay, the next thing you said was they were multiple armed men.
Correct.
Does the fact that there are multiple armed men together, is that an indicator of sovereign citizen behavior to you?
It's possible.
Okay. Have you had training that indicates that is a defining or identifying characteristic of sovereign citizens?
My training teaches me that sovereign citizens are usually armed.
Okay. The fact that it's a Sunday morning, does that in some way indicate to you that the people there are sovereign citizens?
The day of the week is irrelevant.
Okay. Well, you listed it. That's why I'm asking.
Correct.
Does the fact that cruise ships are nearby somehow indicate to you that a armed person is probably a sovereign citizen?
No.
Okay. Do you know if there were any cruise ships scheduled to come in or out that day during that time period?
Usually Sundays is the days most of the ships depart. However, since there's so many cruise ships, sometimes it's normal for every day of the week.
Okay.
But Sunday is usually the bulk day.
You believe that Sunday is usually the bulk day that most cruise ships come in or out of Miami Beach?
Usually come out.
Usually come out, okay. And you are stating that as based on what was going on in 2018, in June
Based
of
on
2018?
my observation of working the area.
In June of 2018.
Correct.
If I've told you I did a check and that there was not a single cruise scheduled to come in or leave Miami Beach that day, would that make you rethink that testimony?
Objection to form.
You can answer the question.
I can answer it? No, that doesn't change my mind.
Okay. At the time you first reviewed the special incident report with Lieutenant Garcia, you said about the same time or maybe within a day or two of the incident, did you still believe they were sovereign citizens?
My suspicions were not as high, being that they advised they're part of the Florida Carry Group, and their main reason for being there was for the open carry with the fishing ordinance or statute. I'm sorry.
So they advised you that their main reason for being there was so that they could open carry while fishing?
That was what one of the individuals kept repeating.
Okay. When you got on the pier, did it appear they were in fact fishing?
When we approached them, most of them, to the best of my recollection, were standing next to their fishing poles. It was very clear that they had weapons. They had sidearms. So at that moment, my main concern was securing the scene as safely as possible so we can safely conduct our investigation.
Okay. You didn't see them casting a line out. Oh, let me rephrase. Nobody cast a line out while they were in handcuffs, right?
No.
But lines were in the water while they were in handcuffs, weren't they?
I believe so, yes.
In fact, one of your officers, or maybe it was you, even helped reel in one of the lines, didn't they?
After reviewing my body-worn camera, I did reel in one of the rods and cleaned it up with the seaweed.
Okay. So when you got on that pier, those lines were in the water from those fishing rods?
Yes, but that wasn't focused on any fishing lines at that moment.
I understand, and that's okay. Did you see fishing tackle in any of the bags that they had there?
Once the scene was secured, I started noticing the fishing poles. I started noticing the fishing equipment, yes.
Okay. So I'm going to back to when you first got there now. Got a little ahead of myself. Did the park ranger tell you that there was a sign that said no carry of firearms on the pier?
I don't remember if he did, but I can assume he did.
Did he tell you that they were that the fishermen were refusing to leave or refusing to comply? Do you remember what the ranger told you?
I remember something to that effect. Exact verbiage, no.
Okay. Did he tell you they had offered to provide him with a copy of a Florida statute regarding their right to be there?
I don't remember. He may have mentioned it, but I don't remember.
Did he give you any information other than, we're talking about the park ranger, did the park ranger give you any information other than these men are armed and they are fishing?
To the best of my recollection, I was advised that I have armed men on the pier. They may be possible sovereign citizens, and that's pretty much the information I got at that moment.
But I'm asking about a specific person, not what some general other person might have said. I'm asking you about the park ranger only. And you said you don't remember. You've already told me you don't remember who said something about sovereign citizen first.
Correct.
So did the park ranger give you any information other than armed people on the pier who are fishing?
That's pretty much the gist of what he told us.
Okay. That's the only things you remember him specifically
I
telling you.
remember that because, to me, that's the top priority at that moment. So,
What's the top priority?
and possible situation here with our men. with public and officers involved. So that was my main concern: is what do I got here, and how do I safely take control of it?
Well, when you're standing with these other 3 officers back talking to the ranger, there aren't any officers involved in this yet, are there?
No,
Those men are out on the pier by themselves or with other members of the public.
correct.
Did the park ranger tell you that they had threatened anybody?
No,
Did the park ranger tell you that they were rude to him?
I don't believe so.
Did the park ranger tell you that they were waving guns around out of their holsters?
No,
Did the park ranger tell you the guns were pistols in holsters?
I believe he may have mentioned there were handguns.
Okay.
I don't remember anything about rifles being mentioned.
Well, you were carrying a holstered pistol, weren't you?
Yes,
Do you have some special right to carry a holstered pistol separate and differently from those individuals who were carrying holstered pistols on the pier?
Objection to form and argumentative. You can answer.
I can answer.
Yes, sir.
You mean like on off duty, or?
Well, you are familiar that we have laws in Florida regarding firearms, right?
Correct.
And do you know what law gives you the right as a police officer to openly carry while you're on duty?
Openly carry while on duty?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I mean, it's part of my job. I'm allowed to.
But what law allows you to do so?
The specific law?
Yes, sir.
I wouldn't know the specific statute verbatim.
So you believe merely by having a police badge, that is the authority, and you don't need any special statutory authority to be able to openly carry while you're on duty?
I'm sure you do need a statute stating that.
Okay. What if I told you that the statute that allows you to open carry on duty is 790.25?
Okay.
You ever heard of that statute before?
I'm sure I've reviewed it once or twice in my career.
Is that also the statute these gentlemen were quoting to you that day when you were disarming them?
I don't know. I don't know the statute verbatim.
Okay. Did you look at it that day?
I'm sure I eventually reviewed it.
Well, do you remember stating while wearing your body-worn camera that the fishing thing, that's going to be the loophole, or words to that effect?
Yes.
Objection to form of the question.
But yes, you do remember.
I remember when I reviewed my camera, I do remember saying that. Yes.
So the fishing thing, the law that allows them to open carry while fishing is just a loophole in the law.
Objection to form of the question. You can answer.
I would say loophole probably wasn't the best word to use, but it was basically what allowed them to open carry was with the fishing poles.
Right. And so the statute that allows them to do that is 790.25 sub 3 sub H. Okay?
Okay.
Do you know what 790.25 sub 3 sub D says?
I'm going to assume something with hunting, or probably talking about law enforcement.
It discusses law enforcement being allowed to open carry, but you weren't familiar with that day.
That wasn't my concern at the moment.
Okay. Have you had any training on that statute since that day?
Reference open carry with fishing or with law enforcement?
Either.
Yes.
Which?
The fishing.
But not as to law enforcement, or that's what authorizes you to open carry.
It may have been mentioned, but I just focused on the fishing portion.
Okay. Now that you know that law exists, does that make you question how you handle the situation that day?
Now that I'm fully aware, and if the call didn't go out with possible sovereign citizens, it's quite possible the situation would have been dealt with very differently.
But you now understand that a person who is openly carrying while fishing is not breaking any law.
Correct.
Did you find any violation of law being committed that day by any of the 6 individual plaintiffs in this case?
No.
Because if you had found such a violation, you would have either issued a citation or arrested them, right?
Correct.
At some point,
I'm going to object the last 3 questions to the form of the question. Thank you.
at some point that day, did you ask another officer to take pictures of everybody's guns?
I don't believe I gave that order.
Okay. Do you know for a fact, do you know whether some other officer did, in fact, take pictures of everybody's guns?
I am unaware if someone took pictures I never gave an order, and I don't remember seeing someone taking pictures of
Do you,
guns.
do you remember asking another officer if they had taken pictures of the guns that day?
No. I don't remember.
You didn't see anything on your video about asking whether it was you or some otherbody else's voice on your camera. You don't remember anything on your camera that you reviewed of one of the other officers being asked if they had taken pictures of all the guns.
I don't remember that.
Okay. What about taking pictures of all of the concealed carry licenses?
I don't remember telling anybody to take pictures of anything.
Do you remember hearing anything like that on the body cam footage you reviewed?
On my video, no.
Yes, on your video. And I don't care whether you said it or somebody else, but anything you overheard while watching your video.
After watching the videos, I don't remember any mention of that.
Any mention of taking pictures of the concealed carry license?
Correct.
Any picture, you don't recall anything about taking pictures of the serial numbers on the guns?
Correct.
But you do know that the guns and the backgrounds of the individuals were run, right?
Yes. Yeah, I ordered that.
You did order that?
Yeah.
What officer do you need in order to detain somebody? Can you tell me the specific legal term that you need in order to conduct a detention of a citizen?
At that point, we were conducting an investigation, so I'm not assuming, I have to make sure a crime has not been committed.
Okay.
So at this point, as I'm approaching the pier, I'm thinking I may have a possible threat. I may have a possible terrorist threat, active shooter. I don't know what I got. So I got to detain, secure, and investigate.
I'm asking you, again, what is the legal standard for you to detain a citizen in general? Not just that day, but what do you need in order to detain a citizen?
Basically, if a suspicion of committing a crime, and they'd have to dispel my alarm before I can basically let them go.
Is the proper term a reasonable, articulable suspicion that crime is or is about to be afoot?
Yes.
Is that a phrase you've heard before?
Yes.
Okay. So, on that day, when you went out on that pier, as you were approaching those men, can you identify for me all crimes that you either believed were being committed or might be about to be committed?
I believed a possible active shooter situation could have possibly occurred
Anything else?
before my investigation. That was basically my only concern.
Okay. So you were not concerned about the fact that they were openly carrying firearms?
No.
You did not walk on the pier believing that
Check the form of the question.
you did not detain them in the belief that the open carry of the firearms by those individuals was illegal.
Repeat the question?
When you detained them, did you believe that their act of openly carrying firearms was a crime?
They were openly carrying in the state of Florida, which is not allowed. And my main concern at that moment was obviously the possible threat, securing and investigating. Like I said, when we walked up, they were standing next to the fishing poles. My main concern was just securing the scene and finding out what I have.
So one of the crimes you suspected when you walked up was that they were openly carrying a firearm?
Yes.
And you've now learned that that was not a crime?
Correct.
Objection in the form of the question.
Approximately how many minutes into the situation would you say passed from the time you drew your firearm until you realized that these were not people there to commit an act of shooting?
Objection in the form.
You can answer the question.
I can answer. Once they were secured, and now it didn't even go down because there was more people coming. But once those initial gentlemen were secured, and I heard them talking about the laws reference open carry and fishing, I started realizing, okay, maybe this isn't sovereign citizens, maybe this is something else I'm dealing with here. but I still wasn't sure.
But you had all their guns taken away.
Correct.
You had checked them for knives.
We searched them.
At that point, why leave them in handcuffs?
At that point, we were getting word that more individuals with guns were walking towards the pier. So as I'm dealing with the men on the pier, me and my officers, I'm advising dispatch. You know, I still at this point don't know what I have, and now I'm being told that there's more people with guns walking around this park and beach area.
Okay. Who told you that?
That came through dispatch.
Do you know who called into dispatch with that information?
I don't know who exactly know.
Okay. How many other individuals eventually showed up to your knowledge?
I believe 2 more, but at that moment I'm thinking, how many people am I dealing with? I don't know.
You say 2 more. One of those actually ended up being a reporter, didn't it?
I believe.
Objection to the form of the question.
Okay. You say you believe 2 more people showed up while you were dealing with the first 5 individuals, right?
Yes.
One of those individuals that showed up was Jonah Weiss.
Okay.
Is that correct?
I don't know.
Did one of those individuals that showed up after you were already on the pier was armed and was brought out on the pier, right?
Yes, I believe so.
I'm going to tell you that individual's name was Jonah Weiss.
Okay.
There was a second individual brought out with him also, though, right?
Okay. Yes.
Do you know what that second individual's profession was?
No.
Did you never identified it that day as to what that second individual was?
I didn't ask her. No.
Did you find out that second individual was not with the group but was a reporter?
Objection to the form of the question. You can answer.
No, I wasn't aware he was a reporter.
Okay. Do you know that today?
I know that right now.
Okay. You didn't know it from watching your body cam?
I remember reviewing the cameras. There were some people. There was media there. I remember seeing, and then there was also other people with cameras there filming the scene. And then once the scene was done, asking questions to passerbys. Are they aware of the open carry with the fishing, and basically educating the public.
Okay. Are you aware in the state of Florida it is a crime to interfere with the lawful taking of game or fish?
Excuse me, will you read that question back to me?
Yeah, if you could repeat it, I didn't hear.
Are you aware that in the state of Florida it is unlawful to interfere with the lawful taking of game or fish?
Objection to the form of the question.
I'm not too familiar with those laws.
Okay. So you don't know, for example, if it's a crime to harass a fisherman?
Objection
Harass
to
a
the form of the
fisherman?
question.
Yes.
Like as law enforcement or
Just as a general proposition that it's a crime to harass or interfere with a person's fishing.
I'm not aware.
Form of the question.
I'm not aware of the specifics. What the statute basically states. I'm not.
Okay.
Not familiar with those statutes.
All right. So after you and the other 3 officers meet with the park ranger, somebody makes the decision that y'all are going to make an approach to the people on the pier, right?
Correct.
And what would you describe, is there a term you would use to describe the type of approach y'all did?
As tactical as possible. Basically making sure, we approach, I guess, side by side, so we're a bigger target. Not a bigger target, but more spread out in the event of someone does start shooting. Our main goal was just to take one person into custody at a time. I can tell you, as I started getting closer, I started realizing there was more people there fishing with sidearms than I realized. At first, I believe we thought there was 3, and it ended up being 5. So right there, I was caught a little off guard, but we slowly took them, secured them, and then began our investigation.
Okay. Out of that initial 5, only 4 of them were armed, correct?
I don't remember if all of them or 4 of them.
Okay.
I don't remember.
You don't recall, for example, that Mr. Devine, Sean Devine, did not have a firearm on him?
I don't remember.
Okay. You don't remember one way or the other?
I can't remember who had guns and who didn't. Unless, obviously, what's on the video. I mean, I don't know people's names.
Did you actually physically handcuff anybody?
Reviewing my BWC, I assisted, I believe, with pill pot. I believe
Pot.
it was. I assisted with giving one of my handcuffs so he could have 2 handcuffs. So it could be easier, I guess, to secure him.
He's a big boy.
Yes.
You didn't put handcuffs on anybody yourself, though.
If I remember correctly, it was I just assisted with him. I don't remember if I did assist or handcuff someone else. I don't believe I did.
Do you know if you point